1. Chapter 1 of Peter Darling. What do you remember? Tinkerbell asked. Peter folded his arms behind his head and grinned at her. What do you mean? He was drifting above the island on his back, weightless on the wind. Tink perched on his chest, clinging to his button shirt. To his shirt buttons. Sorry. He glared her many eyes at him. The frick? I mean, I know she's a fairy, but I was picturing the Disney version of Tink. Do you remember flying here? Of course, Peter said easily. He had swam through an ocean of moonlight, followed Tink's directions to the second star to the right. They had bursted out into a storm above the island and danced along the clouds together, lightning turning the world black and white in flashes. And before that, Peter had vague memories that he had been somewhere unpleasant, but in a long dark passage between worlds. That memory had grown far away and unimportant. No, he said. I expect I was doing something interesting. Tink hummed. Oh my God! Hummed. In agreement, and said, no more of it. Peter turned over so he could survey his kingdom, spreading his arms like a sail. The island was covered in thick, dark forest, except for the snowy peaks of distant mountains. Blue rivers snaked through the woods, patrolled by wild beasts. The surrounding sea was a pale and pearlescent green, like amethyst. Sunlight glinting off the waves. There was still blood on the knife Peter had struck into Hook. Droplets of it. Yes, I moved so I can lean against the wall. My back was starting to hurt. I'm going to start from this. There was still blood on the knife. Peter had struck in Hook. Droplets of it gliding off the point and flying away into the wind. Peter threw the knife into the air, laughing, and caught it by the blade. Tinkerbell had warned him that Hook had been. Give me that. Tinkerbell had warned him that Hook had been ruling Neverland in his absence. Naturally, the first thing Peter had wanted to do was tip him off his throne. Probably Hook has gotten lazy and comfortable with no one bullying him. That would explain why Peter had gotten the best of him so easily. They would have to wake him up. Peter had no intention of coming back to Neverland without a good war. A portly tree with wide branches had served as the Lost Boys' hideout since Peter had first assembled their company. The tree roots grew down into the central caves below the earth, which the Lost Boys had further hollowed out and made into their home. The hideout tree flowered in summer, putting out papery pink blooms that gave way to autumn fruit. It was the only one of its kind in Neverland, invisible from the distance. When one flew above the forest, Peter spotted it almost at once, though he might just as well have followed the perfume of black smoke rising beside it. They always make a mess, Tink said. Has Hook killed any of them? Peter said, coasting down towards the tree. Probably, Tink said heartlessly. I don't count them. But maybe not. There's hardly any bloodshed when you aren't around. And it's a good thing I'm back. He came down on a branch above the hideout. In the clearing around it, a bonfire blazed as wild pigs roasted on spits. I know the word. Above it, the flame. All around the fire were dozens of or so little men. All around the fire were a dozen or so little young men. Peter's age. Talking as they sharpened knives and arrowheads. One was poring over a map. Peter crowed. In near unison, the Lost Boys looked up. One by one, they paled with shock and recognition, with excitement and fear, all except for the young man who had been studying the map. He stood slowly and made his way to the front of the gang. The other Lost Boys parted for him. The others were familiar, but Peter had never seen this boy before. He wore a wolf pelt around his waist, but otherwise might have been a farmer's boy. He had an honest, hard-working look, with broad shoulders and a stern jaw. He stared up at Peter with measuring distrust. "Who are you?" he called. Peter jumped to the end of the branch, which failed to dip beneath his weight. I'm your captain," he called. "I should screw you for your insolence." Peter? That was slightly Peter recognized. Sightly, Peter recognized him at once. A redeeming young man with scent eyes, inquisitive eyes, and round speculars. Damn it! I know the word. Spectacles. Is that really you? The farmer boy glanced sharply at slightly, as if he were stepping out of line. "Yes, it's me," Peter said. He met each other. He met each wandering gaze in turn with a grin. "Who was it who led you all to stow aboard the Jolly Rancher in barrels and surprise the pirates in their sleep? Who first talked to a mermaid? Who brought you to meet the Fairy Queen?" "Who cares?" the farmer boy said. Peter turned slowly to face him. What's your name? He asked. Ernest. Are you a lost boy, Ernest? Ernest glared up at him. I'm their leader. Several of the boys winced and looked Scotted. Oh my god! I got it in my head. Astonished, at Peter. But no one argued. Anger crept up on Peter, as it often did, disguised as humor. He laughed and swung down from the tree. He was interested. He was irritated to find that Ernest stood almost a head taller than him. In the old days, he would have cut the boy short, rather than allow anyone to loom over him. If you're a lost boy, you should know me. I do, Ernest said. You're Peter Pan. You have been gone 10 years, and I'm their leader now. Prove it, Peter said, tossing his knife into the air and catching it. The clearing grew very quiet. Ernest glanced at the knife and back at Peter's face. His eyes narrowing. We're in the middle of something important, he said. About to leave on an expedition. If you want to argue over who's the leader when I get back, you're welcome to wait here. As if I'll let you run away. Run away, that cracked Ernest's composure. I'm not scared of you. There. Oh my god. His hair. I'm not scared of you. As far as I'm concerned, you're just a story. Just a story, Peter grinned. Grinned with all teeth. Tell me if this feels real. He lunged. Ernest barely evaded the first swipe of his knife. Stumbling back and nearly tripped over his feet. Peter was pleased to see that his reflexes were quick. At least it wasn't any fun when his opponent couldn't fight back. The other lost boys scattered left and right, and as he drove forward again, Tinkerbell flew from Peter's shoulder with a squawk of amusement and settled in a branch above to watch as Ernest ducked and weaved, Peter's blade catching only the air. Wait, Ernest shouted. Peter jabbed at him and missed again, shearing through the side of Ernest's shirt. Wait! Ernest seized his wrist in a grip of iron fingers squeezing so Peter couldn't wiggle free, and yanking the knife high above both both their heads. Ernest glared straight into his eyes. You care about the boys, don't you? Of course, Peter said, though he had nearly forgotten they were there. Come with me, Ernest said. I can show you something. I need to show you something. The spiral wooden staircase had led inside the Lost Boys' hideout. Ernest led the way stiffly. He didn't seem to like turning his back on Peter. The roots of the flowering tree formed the hideout ceiling, snaking down the walls in a protective dome. Inside it smelt faintly sour. Tink made a disgusting sound and crawled under Peter's collar. Peter stood over battle swords and stray arrows, bare skulls and half-eaten apples. There were beds tucked into cubbies in the wall, furs and rough straw pillows spilling out onto the floor. One bed was occupied, and Peter recognized its occupant at once by his hair, which was almost the same color as Peter's. Curly? Curly didn't answer. He was shivering and wrapped in several furs, despite the the warmth of the room. His eyes pressed shut. He had grown as much as the others, but huddled up as he was. He looked like a little boy still. When Peter felt his forehead, he found it cold and damp. Peter took his hand back and wiped it on his trousers, grimacing. What's wrong with him? He got sick about a week ago, Ernest said. It's been worse. It's been getting worse and worse. He hasn't been able to speak since yesterday, and he's freezing to death. He placed a hand on Curly's shoulder, rubbing it gently. We've been trying every remedy we know of, and nothing helped. Slightly remembering a story about a flower that only grows on the night of a fairy commune. If you make a tea with it, it can cure any illness. Ernest fixed Peter's with a grave look. I don't know how much time he has left. Excuse me. That's why I have to go at once. The mermaids told me there's a commune coming on mountain tomorrow night, and it'll take all the time we have to get there. I can just fly there, Peter said. Ernest looked startled, and for a moment, almost disappointed, like Peter had ruined his fun. Then he shook his head, collecting himself. Ouch! You wouldn't be able to see it from the air, he said. Confidently. The fairies are secretive. They chose short trees for their commune, so the canopy hides them. It doesn't matter. I could still fly up there faster than you can walk. Ernest's face pinched. I'm their leader, and I'm responsible. Peter smirked at him. So, you'll admit that I'm their leader if I find it first. You'll never even see. You've never seen the flower. Neither have you. You disappeared for 10 years, Ernest snapped. Who's to you? Why is some of these sentences hard to read? Who's to say that you won't disappear again and leave Curly to die? Who's to say you won't fail to get up the mountain? To which case you'll die anyways. Ernest turned red. I don't care who you think you are, he said. I don't trust you. So I'm going, and that's final. Fine, Peter said. Come if you want. See if I care. Make yourself useful. Oh, wait. See if you can make yourself useful. I don't know why my brain made can to care. Then because... Is this the last page? Please be the last page. Ew, it's not. I just saw the stars at the bottom, and I thought, I'll finish this, and because I'm kind of hungry for some reason, and thirsty. Then because see if you can make yourself useful. Then because it's annoying him to be called untrustworthy, he reached over and patted Curly on the shoulder, as Enos had done. I'll be back soon, he said grandly, and you're not allowed to die while I'm gone. Curly wouldn't dare disobey him, even if he was dying. Peter was sure of that. He turned on his heel and went up the stairs. The Lost Boys were still gathered where Peter and Ernest had left them, looking like children whose parents have been shouting in the other room. Peter scowled at them, and they cowered. It didn't make him feel particularly powerful. Ernest stepped up to Peter's side and folded his arms. He had added a bow and quiver to his his air